Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time, Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon, back from her Caribbean vacation. That's how you have to pronounce it, by the way. My grandmother told me this. And we both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about a stronger demand in the housing market than we have seen in the fourth quarter. We got some data around that. We've also got a DOJ nomination, and we want to know if it's going to be good for real estate agents with the new incoming administration in January. And there's a very controversial tax hike in Delaware County we're going to be discussing in the third segment that involves aqua and property taxes for everyone in Delaware County. Hopefully next week, we're going to have one of the Delaware County commissioners on. I'm working on that now, which would be very exciting for this big controversy. So if you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team and Sarah specifically, you can do that with the link in the comments. So it's December 10th. Normally, agents are winding things down. You know, actually, there's probably a lot of people doing this right now.
I'm sure.
You and I aren't normal.
No.
So me probably in a lot of ways. So the point is that, what we're seeing with some of this demand that's out there right now, and I really want to codify this for everybody because we saw rates kind of drop down a little bit. We've got a Fed meeting happening next week. And if you look at what's going on with the jobs report and wages growing, we saw more demand and some surprising demand for this year than this time of year than we've seen in the past. Where last week we saw, again, a positive bump in purchase application data. It feels like this December, it feels shorter, even though it's the same amount of time. I think that has to do with how the holidays hit. But we're also seeing data that tells us the housing market's a little more active than it has been. What are you seeing on the ground, Sarah?
I'm absolutely seeing that on the ground. Like while I was away on vacation, I wrote 2 offers.
Amazing.
And there was a showing that I had yesterday for some clients that I had taken out a while back, where I've been consistently showing them stuff. But when I called the agent in the morning just to find out, and this is something that's been it's one of those things. It's been on the market for 22 days, just to get a little bit more information. And hey, we have an offer in, you better get out there quick. So there is no, you can't just assume you're safe when days on market goes up, there is there is that turnover. And then also on the listing side, some listings that I've had that maybe weren't getting as much activity as we would have liked are starting to see, I've noticed in the last week, an uptick in, people wanting to tour the home.
And it's interesting you say that because I think there's this rate environment that we're in. And I had the chance to interview Skylar Olson. She's the chief economist over at Zillow. And she said it's going to be like a bumpy ride with rates because they're kind of going up and down all year. And when you see this demand happen, the first, second week in December, just looking at, if you look at when mortgage rates were running higher earlier in the year when they were between 6.75% and 7.5%, we saw 14 negative weeks of purchase application data, 2 flat weeks and 2 positive weeks. And what we're seeing right now, just over the past 8 weeks, are 5 positive weeks and 3 negative. And when we saw rates fall in June, we saw 12 positive weeks, 5 negative, 1 flat. So, the fact that you're seeing anything positive right now, to me, is a precursor to what 2025 is going to be like.
Sure.
Because people do feel a little more confident. Now, before we get into what all this means, I do want to talk about this jobs report. So, the jobs report came out on Friday, and we saw that the non-farm payrolls increased to 227,000 jobs, ahead of the 213,000 estimate. Unemployment came in as expected at 4.2%. We saw discouraged and part-time workers total 7.8% of the worker population, and worker pay was up 4%. That's 1/10 ahead of expectation. And what that likely means is we're going to see a rate cut next week. So, this is good, right? Because there was talk of, hey, we may not cut rates in December. So what do you think happens if rates come down a little bit come January 1st, January 15th, and we're maybe 6.5 to 6.75? What does your crystal ball tell you here, Sarah?
I think already going into January, we're going to be seeing a lot of people that have been sitting on the sidelines, kind of waiting for beginning of January to come. So we're going to be seeing them come back to the market, combined with, positive news of just the fact that, like, if there is a drop, that gets people's spirits up. It makes them excited. But ultimately, I think you're going to be competing against more people, and your monthly payment may be similar to if you got in at a little bit of a higher rate now, but a lower purchase price.
Yeah, and I would argue that window's closing pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, because I look at like listing appointments we're scheduling as an organization, like that number has been pretty consistent these past couple of weeks because we're getting the message out, hey, let's start planning. Let's start talking. Let's get your house ready. Like, let's start talking about these things that are going to happen. And when you look at some of these predictions that are out there, like Zillow and Realtor.com as an example, Zillow forecasts inventory is going to loosen, which will give buyer more options and better negotiating power. But there's also going to be, rates could stay the same. Prices are predicted to go up across the board with all the people that predict these things. So you may pay a higher price, like you said, even though if the rate's a little lower, it might be a wash. And then there's like terms, right? So what do you advise people? I mean, obviously you want to buy the right house, but what someone says this, like, I'm going to wait for more inventory. How are you handling that right now? Because this is something that comes up like all the time, especially in the month of December.
Yeah. I mean, I think kind of bringing it back to what are their musts? What do they need? Like, and are there properties that maybe they've not gone and seen in person and have just kind of skipped over for whatever reason? If you can get in, I'm kind of thinking still right now we're seeing a lot of buyer activity out there. It's December 10th. My guess is when we're on the radio show next week on the 17th, things are going to have cooled a little bit, right? We're going to start getting into that thing of like, oh no, I didn't buy any Christmas presents yet. Oh no, I didn't put up the tree yet. This is also me saying that right now. I've not bought any Christmas presents and I haven't put up a tree. But
and you better get on the horse here. You got a young daughter at home.
I know. I feel bad. But
she's got grandparents, right? So
yes. Oh yeah.
I'm kidding.
Oh yeah. Oh, I came home yesterday. My mom had like pulled out some Christmas decorations from the basement and like taken down some of the fall ones. And I was like, thank you. Can you do the rest? But I think then you're going to get for the 17th through like the 22nd, even the 23rd, if you're out as a buyer, I think that's going to be your window to be able to negotiate, to get like both pricing and get some of those inspections and stuff in. No, you're not settling in December, but what a great like relief and Christmas gift for the sellers to like know that their home is under contract and to not have to worry about that and just be able to like sit back and relax. So I think that's going to be your window where a lot of people kind of are taking off for a minute, and where sellers still like they would love the peace of mind of having their property under contract, especially if it's one that's been sitting for even just like a few weeks.
And there's a lot of mixed messaging around when to hit the market. And I encourage people to look at data, right? And there's data behind Sarah's recommendation here, because there's some people like they're going into next week. They're just going to be, the kids are like almost out of school, but they're not quite. I know my kids are done on the 20th. So, and then they have actually 2 full weeks off, or not 2. I think they go back to second. I don't know. It shows what I know. It's in the shared calendar. I haven't even gotten that far yet, but there's Christmas is early this year. There's not like that elongated week that you would get like the end of November, beginning of December in Thanksgiving. So if you're a buyer, I would like, don't take your foot off the gas right now. And if you're a good agent, you're talking to people about this stuff. If you're a seller, be a little patient, and you might want to just realize that you might need to take some time here to work through things. And that's really good advice. So as we head towards the end of the year, we're going to do our like predictions for next year, but I want to talk about some of the key takeaways that Zillow and Realtor.com have come up with. So, and what I'd love to do, Sarah, we didn't talk about this before the show. Right at the end of the year, we're probably not going to do a live show Christmas Eve. I've got way too much going on. Probably New Year's Eve. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that one. But at some point here, I want to list our predictions, like over-unders, and then we can bring them back the following year and see how we do.
Okay.
So Zillow is predicting home price increases of 2.6%. Realtors at 3.7%. Who do you think is closer to being accurate? Now, again, these are national numbers. Zillow's at 2.6, Realtor.com's at 3.7.
Realtor.
I tend to agree. I think Zillow is probably factoring in a lot of like Florida and Texas and these other places. In our market, I would say realtor is probably low, and I would estimate 4 to 6%. I mean, we saw close to 8% this year. All right, here inventory. Realtor.com predicts 11.7% growth in inventory, and Zillow forecasts that we're going to see loosened inventory. They didn't really give us a number. What do you think about 11.7 from Realtor.com? Too high, too low, a push?
I think that they're maybe reaching a little bit high.
I tend to agree, especially in our market. Like, and maybe better yet, let's take the national numbers and give our prediction for what's happening locally. So we're low on pricing, high on inventory growth, mortgage rates 6.3% average according to Realtor.com. What do you think about that?
Wait, like that's what the average for the year is going to be?
Yeah.
That's where they're going to end at?
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit low.
Yeah, I tend to agree also. Their year-end figure is 6.2. I mean, if we're at 6.2 this time next year, I'm pretty excited about that. I would imagine rates are going to be like 6.5, best case scenario. Mortgage affordability will improve slightly. Home sales will rise slightly. Zillow is forecasting 4.3 million sales in 2025. And Realtor.com is forecasting 4.07 million in 2025, only up 1.5% from the projected sales in 2024. Who do you think's closer?
I don't know. When we talk like numbers that big and nationally, it kind of goes over my head because I feel like I think more about what's happening here. But can you repeat them?
All right. So right now we're projected to see about 4.01 million sales, 4 million sales, right? Like it's going to be a pretty flat number. Realtor.com's projecting 4.07 million. So it's another 70,000 homes. That's what.
Sure, I'll give it to them.
And Zillow's projecting 4.3 million. That's another 300,000 homes.
I'll give it to Realtor.
I mean, I hope we see more homes than that, but you might be right, especially here. Buyers markets are expanding, especially in the Southwest. I don't know that that's anything we can really talk about here. What do you think about, so this was interesting. Realtor.com identified regulatory changes under the Trump administration as a wild card for 2025.
Yeah.
So plans to open federal land for home building, reduce regulatory costs, could boost supply and affordability. Stricter immigration policies and tariffs may increase construction costs, offsetting these gains. Fiscal policies, including deficit cuts, could also drive inflation and keeping housing costs elevated. So, I mean, do you feel like there's like some wild, like this could, whatever the administration does could be a wild card? No one knows how it's going to affect the market.
Yes.
Well, I think that's any administration, right? I think the same thing happened when the Biden administration came in. And here's the thing with this. This isn't going to happen like overnight. Like you're talking about developing federal lands. Like that may happen at like the end of his term, right?
Right.
You talk about regulatory costs or eliminating some red tape. That's got to happen at the local level. I think it's going to take a while for that to happen as well.
I think the one thing that could be the quickest to make a change would be if immigration things change, and then absolutely construction costs are going to go up.
For sure. I mean, I've heard stories from people, and this is people we know. I'll tell you who they are off air, that have construction businesses, labor businesses, and they're like driving around trying to find people to work for them and like paying them like cash like that day. And that keeps costs down. I don't think it's right, but that's what happens.
Right. No, and I think that's one that if those changes go into effect, which I mean, not to be political, but he's made it sound as though that's going to be something he gets right into, that would have a pretty quick trickle down without all of the pieces and timelines and time factors that go into place when you're doing something like you were talking about earlier with making more, opening up more land and changing regulations.
This isn't political. This is realistic. I mean, this could happen. And unfortunately, there is a lot of under the table work. I mean, I think that's the complaint about all this is that there's jobs that could be filled by people that live. I mean, it's a whole thing. So that will definitely drive costs up. That's all we're talking about here.
Construction costs are going up if that happens.
Well, it definitely will, because I mean, the cost of labor is going to go up. Renters are going to continue to face challenges. I can't speak to that one so much. Here's the last one. I want to get your take on this. So smaller homes and pet-friendly options will gain popularity. So Zillow reports a growing trend toward smaller, more affordable homes, with cozy appearing in 35% more listings in 2024 compared to 2023. And that shift reflects buyer preferences for sustainable and functional living spaces over expansive layouts. Smaller condos and starter homes are stabilizing in value, offering entry-level buyers a path to ownership. And another factor expected to drive competition among rental property owners is the growing emphasis on pet-friendly accommodations. 58% of renters own pets compared to 46% before the pandemic. What do you think about smaller homes, cozy homes, and having to be a little more open-minded about pets?
I think yes, for the open-minded about pets. I think the smaller, the cozy homes, yes, but also that might be because that's what people can get into.
I agree
So
with
it's like
that.
double-sided. Like, that's what they're getting? Is it what they want? In some cases, yes. In some cases, maybe not.
Cozy is a nice way of saying
Cozy
small.
is such a nice way.
I mean, it's saying this is a smaller house, but it's nicely cared for,
right?
Which is all fine.
Yeah.
It's good marketing language.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but I tend to agree with you that smaller homes are what some people can afford right now. They have to make some concessions.
Right. And I think there's always been a group of people that are more drawn to a smaller home, less to take care of, less to like do whatever with. And then there's always going to be a pocket of people that, even if that is the trend, they want more space.
For sure. Yeah. And a lot of it depends on like their household situation, right? If it's like one or two people, the small space isn't horrible.
Yeah, sure.
Start to have kids.
No, it's terrible.
Keep them on the other wing of the house or something like that. I mean, just get them. But there's more space, there's more stuff, and I think it's something you got to be mindful of. So these predictions, I mean, we're going to do our own, but you're going to see these predictions are all going to be kind of similar. Like, I mean, they're going to bounce around. Someone's going to be right, someone's going to be wrong. So we're going to do over unders on like the averages, and then we're going to have like 3 or 4 numbers here that we come up with. I think it'll be a little more effective that way rather than us come up with our own. So as we wrap up this segment here, so we've got the Fed meeting next week, some perspective. It's 8 days away. There's an 86.1% chance we're going to see that 25 basis point decrease, which is what was promised. The Fed has come through on all their additional stuff they were promising about doing. So I see that as good news. The jobs report data is going to likely pave the way for another rate cut. And knowing that we've also got like some inflation data that's going to come out this week, especially towards the end of the week, as long as that doesn't come in egregiously off, we're going to see a rate cut here. What do you think the rate cut is going to do for consumer confidence as we head into the end of the year and the beginning of next year?
Yeah, I think it's going to give them a nice little boost, and it's going to be just positive news and a good way to like go into the next year.
So it's interesting. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a good thing. The next Fed meeting is not till January 29th. And right now, the odds are they're putting 86% odds on getting down to the target rate between 425 and 450. Then it looks like they're probably going to stay the course at the January meeting with a 69.1% chance that the target rate is in that 425 to 450 range. Then the next meeting is not till March, and that's when we might see another subsequent rate cut at a 52% chance. We'll see rates fall into the target of 400 to 425. So it's going to be very interesting here as we head into the new year, see what the Fed's going to continue to do, because it looks like they're going to hold in January based on these odds right now. Maybe do something in March, and then the next meeting's not till May 7th. That's way too far out to predict.
Oh, they're going to be making revisions on revisions.
Yeah, but I just want to predict. I'm looking at the next two because I think the data is going to be a little better there. So if we see some more cuts, I would imagine we're going to see rates come down a little quicker, although I still don't see them getting much lower than 6% next year.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Good stuff, Sarah. We're going to come back, and Gail Slater is the DOJ nomination by President Trump. We're going to talk about that, if that's good for real estate or not. We've also got some other DOJ news about them ending their probe into the rental portal RealPage. And guess what?
What?
New York Times author, journalist Deborah Kamen has another NAR exposure story, this time about political PACs. We'll break it all down next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
You shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's number one lender, we specialize
I've
in
done
all residential
like
mortgages.
practically nothing. Although I really only have to get, we just have to really get started.
We have 3 kids.
Yeah.
I have 1.
Yeah. Well, and like she's the only grandkids. The grandparents get us so much stuff.
It's also,
we have to have something.
she's young enough, like it doesn't like, it's like, wait,
Yeah.
like our kids are like, we want this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, texting my mom, and he's like, you have a pair of JBL headphones from well, she keeps asking me, I'm like, just text him, I don't know.
Yeah.
Access to home purchase. Whether you're a first-time buyer,
Yeah.
upsizing or
It has been working out well though,
just
being like for
refinancing,
Maddie, like
we
with
have
Santa, like she's not
programs
listening, like
for you.
Santa's
We also
watching.
have closing
But then she was
cost
kind of like, where is
assistance
it?
You should get that
programs
app.
and access to
Remember that shit?
subsidized interest
Oh,
rates.
wait.
Pre-approval is free, no cost.
I send you a video of this when I called,
Visit
like,
our
friend with
website
it.
at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000. We always have a person available to take your
So
call
it
with
comes
around-the-clock
right?
human
You get a
service.
call.
Purchase your home with the personalized
Right.
local service
Bryn.
you find at Mortgage America.
No, because
The Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania with over
Let's say
$165 million in
I don't know
volume
what
for
it's meant to do.
2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved
She's not
that kind of
listening, right?
success
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Past that
being a
time,
great
right?
Yeah.
place to work with
Said a naughty
and
word.
to work for. No
Right, you
one
can do
knows
all
Greater
this stuff.
Philly better than
You
we
gotta put her name in,
do.
and then
Real
you put the
estate,
birth
but
blank.
more importantly, we're real
It changes
people.
every, I don't
We
need to
hire
adjust
the
this.
best
Use
agents
this
and
for
give
years.
them all
No,
the
they
tools
don't
to
believe
succeed. Even our
Same clothes
brand new
anymore.
agents sell
Yeah.
17 to 24 homes
This
a
is
year
phenomenal.
because our team
That is
delivers the
amazing.
best experience
Well,
in real
and
estate.
Then wait, and then you hit
Teams
this,
deliver
right?
a better
So
experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country.
you
We
put them
call it
back on the
AAA
list.
service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor. Because this isn't a transaction to us.
Listen to this,
It's a
right?
relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the
parenting
Tom
hack.
Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main 10-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's Tom, Toole with an E.com. Sell your home for more, and remember the real
Oh
estate.
my
golden
God, I
rule.
have to get
You
that. Wait, what's
always
it
get
called?
more when you work
Get the
with
message
Tom
from
Toole.
Santa or
Have
something.
you considered a career in real estate? Do you want to control your income?
Parenting.
Whether you have a license or not, call
My
us today
sister
at
told
610-692-6976
Maddie that the Grinch rips your hair out.
or visit
Pulls your hair out
tomtoole.com.
if you're bad.
Join them.
The Krampus. The Krampus will eat you. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about more NAR news. Gail Slater is the DOJ nomination for the Trump administration. We're going to talk about if that is good for housing or not. We're also going to break down the end of DOJ's rental probe into RealPage, a rental portal, and another exposure by New York Times author Deborah Kamen about some political PACs. And in the last segment, we're going to talk about a very controversial tax hike in Delaware County that has people up in arms. So if you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, and Sarah in particular, you can do that with the link in the comments. So let's start off with the DOJ nomination. So Donald Trump, he's the president-elect, getting sworn in January 20th. And a lot of real estate professionals, they hoped that his win of the election would lessen the antitrust scrutiny on the industry by the DOJ. I think that was a fair thing that's been out there. Trump recently nominated Gail Slater. She is a veteran technology and media policy advisor to lead the DOJ's antitrust division, and it's casting doubt on these hopes. Steve Murray, the co-founder of Real Trends Consulting, said, "My gut tells me this isn't going to be a good thing for us. It might be neutral at best, which just means that everything pretty much continues." Chuck Kane, an attorney and the president of Alliance Solutions, how this plays out remains to be seen as to focus on the realty industry. But those who believe there be more of a laissez-faire philosophy at antitrust were certainly surprised by Ms. Slater's nomination. So some background on her. Slater served as a policy advisor to VP President-elect J.D. Vance, and she was also a technology policy advisor at the National Economic Council. She's known as a bit of an antitrust hawk and has previously called for Google parent company Alphabet to be broken up. And just like VP-elect Vance. She has praised the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission Chair Lina Khan, for her work on going after big tech under the Biden administration. So what do you think about this appointment here? What does that mean for real estate, Sarah?
Well, if she's like, but they can't really disassemble, right? I don't know if that makes sense. But so if they were calling to like break up larger companies and whatnot, and if she's like antitrust, would it just mean that she would be continuing or like supporting some of the lawsuits and things that have gone through?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the lawsuits are kind of independent, but you look at the opinion that came out when they settled it, like, hey, we don't like the buyer brokerage agreement.
Right.
We don't like this. We want to decouple commissions entirely. It's more of that is what people are talking about.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to be ready for whatever they bring about. Like, I almost feel like who knows what they're gonna come forward with. We just have to be ready to comply so that we're complying.
Well, I tend to agree with you there. I don't think this changes anything. I think there's some people that have said maybe this will loosen things up a little bit. We'll get the DOJ off NAR's back, which they've been a target for a while. When I look at some of her track record here, there's an attorney who's he's a managing attorney at a large law firm, says that she does not like monopolistic practices and has been long in favor of using strong government antitrust enforcement powers to rein in companies and associations who have used their market power to disadvantage smaller competitors, or better yet, new market disruptor entrants into the marketplace. So I think you could definitely put NAR into that category. I mean, they've just been worried about themselves, not even really like people like you and me.
Right.
They're worried about the organization itself. And she also doesn't have any specific knowledge or expertise in real estate, but that may not prevent her from continuing to pursue investigations and litigation against NAR. So, I mean, I think it's going to be more of the same. I mean, I
think so too.
I don't think we're going to see a change there. And people were talking about this before the election when President Trump, soon to be President Trump, President-elect Trump, whatever we're supposed to call him, appointed and tapped JD Vance. Well, he's had an antitrust history here, so that was very different than his last VP. So this is not that surprising to me,
right,
after seeing this here. And so let's say things just stay the same. Let's say the DOJ continues to apply pressure. What advice do you have for real estate agents in this environment?
I guess as things are changing, and as like we have different rules and things that we need to abide by, make sure that you are up to date and current on them, because you don't want to be the one who gets fined.
That's for sure. I have a different piece of advice. I'm looking at like, all right, this is going to happen whether you like it or not, right? Like everyone's voted, they've gotten their say. Now you got to look at how to run your business in this environment. And I'm clear there is a clear way to do this, and it starts with building trust with consumers. If you do that, I mean, we're seeing people that are having no issue getting these buyer agency agreements signed. I mean, are you running into a lot of problems with that?
Nope.
Tell us more. What's working for you? I mean, Sarah's good, guys. End of the show. See you later.
No, I mean, I think it's being able to explain what the documents mean. I mean, I guess also a lot of like initially when it came to getting things signed, I have a lot of clients that I've worked with for a very long time. So this wasn't hey, we've never met before. You need to be like signing a contract. It was almost a no-brainer of like, yes, of course we'll sign that. Then for people that you are just starting to work with or that don't know you, have not worked with you before, being able to present them with the different options and being able to explain in a non-threatening way that this is a requirement. We need to be compliant. But it's, it's not that scary of a thing. And that there are options there where you're not being exclusively locked in for an amount of time with someone. But this is what we have to do to be able to get in and look at homes.
I agree with that. And you're seeing the people that are winning, and we do these role play calls. We've been role playing this thing for months right now. And I know you've been on them. The folks that like focus too much on the contract, they just can't they can't get out of their own way. It just sounds very salesy. The people that are focusing on, hey, how can I help Sarah? How can I help my client that I'm talking to? How can I service you really great so that you have no other option but to use me? Or I'm just going to go after listings, which has a higher degree of difficulty.
Mhm.
That also makes it a little easier because you always had to get a contract signed to handle a listing.
Yeah.
So when I look at this, it's really, how can I get in front of people? How can I earn their trust? How can I build empathy? And how can I help them? And if that's what you're focused on, this stuff's going to be there no matter what. It's going to be probably some new forms we got to fill out. People get a little bent out of shape about having to negotiate compensation. Commercial real estate's been like that for a while. You had a commercial sale you're working on, you had to negotiate compensation, right? So this stuff's going to be there. So I don't, if I'm an agent, I'm looking at this like, all right, this is what's going to happen. What do I need to adjust? Because you're not going to change this. I think that's probably the most important advice there. So it sounds like we're in agreement there. We'll see how this plays out. I mean, it's way too soon to tell. Now, we do have some other DOJ news. This was interesting. So if you remember a few months ago, the DOJ had an antitrust probe into this rental company called RealPage. And it was in August. 8 states and the DOJ filed a civil suit alleging the company's pricing algorithm doesn't only help landlords figure out what to charge. It distorts competition to the detriment of renters, which I didn't really understand.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the investigation's over.
Ah.
Funny how that works.
Huh.
What do you think about this? The DOJ backing off something.
Wow.
Now, the civil litigation is continuing. The DOJ investigation's done, just to be very clear.
Wait, and I remember talking about this before.
They basically said there was price fixing going on because everyone was sharing rental data, which that's a tough one.
I don't know. Isn't that just being more transparent?
I don't think it's any different than sharing home price data. That may be why the DOJ is backing off.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh.
So I mean,
there you go.
Well, with this, I mean, I think you're going to see more antitrust stuff. I mean, we're going to see more and more of it. The reason I think this is interesting is that RealPage isn't governed by NAR, and they don't have all these NAR ties, and it's probably a legit company. That's my view here, is that they backed off because it was a legitimate investigation, versus someone like NAR who just had something else exposed. We're going to talk about that here in a second, where it just seems like one thing after another happens with them. And that's usually what happens in corrupt organizations, right? So to give some color here, NAR's Political Action Committee, they have built a reputation for supporting candidates from both parties equally, ensuring a bipartisan approach to advancing the interests of real estate professionals. Sounds awesome. Great. Like, that's what you would hope for. Deborah Kamen, the New York Times journalist, she questioned that claim of neutrality and shed some light on spending habits after this is after her November report about the 6-figure perks for volunteer leaders. So the latest article centers on the APOA. It's the American Property Owners Alliance, a nonprofit created in 2020 and funded by NAR. Tax records show that it's allocated $10 million of its $12.8 million in grants to Republican-aligned groups over the past 4 years, according to the Times report. But there's question if the article has it right. So there was a fact check done by our friends at BAM. So I'm just going to run this down with you. But what do you think about this before I get into the fact check?
You mean just about how disproportionately?
Like, if it's true, like what's your reaction?
I mean, if it's supposed to be like a bipartisan, piece that seems as though they are leaning heavier one way than the other. Yes. Did they have better ideas? I don't know. I feel like this is one of those things where it's hard because on its face that looks really bad. But you almost need to go back further and kind of peel behind the layers to see what else was presented that then the other side ultimately got the grant or got the money. But when it's faced, no, that looks terrible.
I agree.
And it probably is.
Well, and maybe it had something to do with the way these lawsuits were going. I mean, who knows? So there was a fact check, and there's a website where the APOA money goes. One Nation.
Or I guess before you do the fact check, did they try to deny that was how the money was?
There's been no comment so far. This just came out. This was yesterday. Okay. So if you look at where the APOA money goes, and this is all on their website, One Nation received $7 million. That's aligned with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and contributes to the Senate Leadership Fund, the largest super PAC for Senate Republicans. That's obviously a big portion. The American Action Network received $2.5 million, founded by former Senator Norm Coleman and Fred Malek. This Republican advocacy group supports conservative causes. So that's 9.5.
Yeah.
Opportunity Matters received $100,000. That's another Republican-aligned super PAC focusing on promoting conservative policies. American Unity Fund received $100K, a Republican-aligned LGBTQ advocacy group that champions same-sex marriage. The House Majority Fund got $3 million. This organization is a key contributor in the Democratic House Majority PAC, a leading super PAC for, well, and that's a big portion there. I mean, it's not like it's $3 million bucks. National Black Empowerment Council received $40,000, nonpartisan group to close the wealth gap between Black Americans and other groups. The Douglas Leadership Institute received an unspecified amount, and that focuses on Black community and campaigns to reduce abortions within the demographic. It's a Christian group. There was a response from NAR. I was wrong. APOA has issues-based grant-making processes to organizations on both sides of the aisle. Cherry-picking data can only tell one story, but a holistic review of the APOA giving reveals that its giving is split and changes from year to year based on current policies. For example, in 2023, more than 70% of APOA grant disbursements were made to left-leaning organizations. That was just last year. So, I mean, that's actually pretty close to the same breakdown. APOA also does much more by way of advocacy than grants alone. So,
and who is the one that determines who gets what and how much? And are there other organizations that would have applied for it that didn't get it?
That I don't know. So they said that they told the New York Times that they acted in a manner consistent with that section of the 501c4 advocacy organization. And you know, there was Monday evening, there was a fact check statement, and the spokesperson said both NAR and APOA are nonpartisan organizations, and our expenditures across the political spectrum reflect the industry's support for organizations and policymakers who champion policies that are important to consumers and real estate practitioners. In addition to groups like One Nation and the American Action Network, NAR works with groups like National Fair Housing Alliance, Mobility Works, National Housing Conference, Up for Growth Action. There's a couple others here. Realtors, Political Action Committee. Political giving is split evenly between Republicans and Democrats. Those expenditures are searchable at fec.gov. So it looks like they really push back on this. I mean, it does sound like the data got cherry picked. If 70% in 2023 went to one side, and you know, we're seeing the same thing
like
here.
if it kind of does, you know, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but like move around, oscillate,
changes,
yeah,
fluctuates,
yeah, year to year here, and there are some years where it falls on one side, and other years where it falls on the other side. And that's the way it's consistently been over the course of like quite a few years. Then that does paint a little bit of a different picture than just snapping one piece.
This might be one that needs a little more research. I mean, we've been pretty tough on NAR on this show for good reason. And you know, if that's really what's going on, and they can break it down that way, I think that actually is fair. And they have the data to support it. I mean, these PACs, I mean, you can't just like spend your money however you want. It's all very, very public knowledge there. So, you know, and like, I mean, there's a lot of accusations in here. I don't know how much further we want to go with this. I mean, it's one of those things where everyone's watching NAR right now. So whether they're doing something right or wrong or not, people are going to be scrutinizing their decision making.
Yeah, which might be good.
Well, it is good for sure. So I mean, you know, DOJ, it's probably going to be the same. If I'm an agent right now, I'm focusing on what I can control. I think that's a really good way to look at this. I mean, if you're part of NAR right now, you just got to be very mindful that everyone is watching you. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about this controversial tax hike in Delaware County, and just talk about like the impact that it has next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I think one of these county commissioners is going to come on next week. Like, do like a phone call. Pretty cool.
Wait, what?
The Delaware County Commissioner.
Oh, nice.
That'd be a good one.
Okay, so I
local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet as PHFA's number one.
I'll break it down for you.
Specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
I'm Tom Toole of the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. If you're thinking of becoming a real estate agent in the greater Philly area, I have a special offer for you. Our team did $165 million of volume in 2021, making us the #1
it's only like the county tax, which is like very interesting. So
team nationally.
like it's not as much as you think, but people are kind of
Yeah, it looks like that one thing that I looked at said like
agents who've been with us for at least
$185
a year average 30 plus sales. Even our brand new agents average 17 to 24 sales a year. We offer proven systems and expert training. We help you set more appointments and sell more houses. Now here's the offer. If you don't have a real estate license yet, we offer real estate scholarships so you can get one for free. Check it out at realestateprogram.com or visit the Tom Toole sales group at Remax Mainline at tomtoole.com. That's Tom.
Brent's not listening to play that. Sorry.
Get more out of your real estate career, and remember the real estate.
That's also how she talks. So she's got like a little bit of a deep voice.
oh my gosh. Anyway, it's funny. It's been working, so like I'm trying not to overuse it, but like it's been working so well.
This is game
Like
time now. So
she'll just be like, oh, okay, like after being like just not listening, not listening. Okay.
We're only sitting on the couch, like we're like, all right, time to get washed. I'm like, brushing the girl's hair is like my.
Oh my gosh, Maddie acts like I am murdering her,
Oh, yeah.
and I am so gentle, and she acts like I am murdering her.
I'm probably a little rougher than you are, but Brent's got very thick hair, like
Yeah.
extremely thick, and it's like,
Yeah. Maddie's is like pretty fine, so I feel like it like will like I never have her hair down. I always have it up because otherwise it just gets so naughty, and like I think it probably does like hurt. Like just like stop squirming, you're making it worse.
692-6976.
It's never gonna change.
Yeah.
Something like this. Another girl brushed her own hair, so I have that going for me. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Time, and we both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Mainline, the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are streaming live talking about Delaware County weighing a 23% tax hike. We'll explain it next. If you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team about what this tax hike might mean for your real estate needs, you can do that with the link in the comments. So we're trying to get one of the county commissioners to come on the show here, hopefully next week. And this news came out the end of last week. The Delaware County Council is considering a $321 million budget that would raise property taxes by 23%. So the average assessment in Delaware County is $255,108. The tax bill would increase about $185 from $803 to $988 per year. Now, this is important. So you know what makes up all the components of property taxes, right?
I think so.
Okay. So you got your school tax, right? The school
Yeah.
district tax. That's usually the biggest component.
Yeah.
Then you got the county, and then typically there's the municipal tax, where there's the city, the township, the borough, depending on where you live. So the county tax is only one component of this. So I think it's a little misleading hearing
Yeah, that
23%.
That 23% sounds like but yeah, when you break it down, if that like since it's such a small portion of what your taxes are, that's I mean, as far as like dollars out of your pocket, like yes, it is dollars out of your pocket, but it's not as substantial as that 23% makes it sound.
Yeah, I mean, and you got some place in Delaware County, they have a $400,000 house and there's a $10,000 property tax bill going to 12.5. That's a big deal, right? Like that's a big number. So, you know, that's what you need to be mindful of here. So there was a December 3rd council budget workshop, and where the county executive director, Barbara O'Malley, explained that costs have increased. And Chris Franklin, CEO of Essential Utilities, which is the parent company of Aquas, that's basically most people's water company. He proposed a way for the county to improve its financing and allowing him to buy the DELCORA, the I guess Delco RA. That's the Delaware County Regional Water Control Authority, to buy their sewer system, which, I mean, that sounds great for him. This makes me a little nervous for Delaware County. He wants to buy the sewer because a lot of the sewer is built by like the township, or sometimes you'll see a bill that comes in from like the borough. That would put another $125 million into the county coffers, and that the Delcora sewer system, it services nearly 500,000 county residents and deals with 60 million gallons per day of wastewater flow. That's a lot of wastewater. So this is going to be controversial for sure. I mean, and there's more meetings to come, obviously, and people are not happy. I mean, there was an article on the Delco Times that the headline is like, not a happy time in Delaware County. So what do you think about this? I mean, this is a big jump, even if it's only the county increase. I get it, but you take $185 times 50,000 people, it can add up pretty quickly.
And then do we know what that where that surplus of funds, like how that gets divvied up and where that goes, or just like goes to the county?
So I mean, this is where the budget gets a little tough. So when they look at the offer from Chris Franklin, like I get that. I think that's a good move for his company if he's able to do that. But what they're saying is that nobody wants to increase taxes, that we just don't have any choice about this if we're going to continue to operate the government. And they've deferred what they can as long as they can, which, I mean, part of the problem is people don't all pay their taxes. Like that, that's an issue, right? And then Ruther, who is she is Christine Ruther, who I invited to come on the show. Hopefully she'll be here next week. She's quoted as saying that the need for the county health department, which that 78% of the county health department is funded by state and federal funds, like that's a problem for them.
Yeah.
And she went on to say that it's embarrassing not to be able to support our schools and not to be able to support our businesses, because when the pandemic hit, Delaware County relied on the Chester County Health Department since they didn't have one. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, wow.
I remember this happening when it came to like COVID tests and like shots and that sort of stuff. And Delaware County is the most populous county in the U.S. not to have its own county health department.
Ooh.
So there's some issues here,
Yeah,
for sure. And and then they go on to talk about that, like there's infrastructure that needs attention, like garages and concrete panels, and I mean that's a problem in a lot of places. So they're just saying basically they got no other option here.
well, and I guess like do we know the last time that taxes were raised?
Well, Delaware County did get reassessed
Okay.
very recently. I mean, and they go up every year, but I mean not by 23%. Let's look this up here. And they approved a 5% property tax increase last year. So I mean, now obviously 23% is a lot different,
but 5% tax increase for like the same
for 23 to 24.
Okay.
Yeah, just on the county, just on the county.
All just county. Okay.
And then they're proposing 23% this year. And so I mean, there was that Delaware County reassessment project that happened back in like 2019 to 2020, if you remember, that and the Suburban Realtors Alliance put this together, where they went through and they reassessed all 200,000 residential and commercial properties within its borders, and it was basically that the assessment was supposed to come in at 56.5% of the market value, was the idea. So, and that's on par with Chester County and Montgomery County, which their common level ratio and assessment is supposed to come in at 49.3% of property values. So it's right in there. So Delaware County taxes have gone up a couple times. And then you got people saying, I don't know if this is too high or too low. It just the problem. I mean, you don't have a health department. I mean, you're the largest county in the U.S. without a health department. That's an issue. So I don't know if they have a lot of other options here.
Right. But then was there a time frame there where they were delivered, like, I guess residents of the county got letters and they were able to go in and I guess like talk about it prior to.
So this is all going on now.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's let's see here. So they have this the Aqua thing is interesting because they made the same offer 5 years ago. The county budget commission that was proposed at the most recent meeting, and they need to look at the finances long term. So I mean, there's time to approve this, but I mean, this is no different than when the U.S. government can't approve their budget and the government might shut down. So I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Right. Well, and I mean, I guess like, and it would be way too much like splitting hairs to have like some that go up, some that don't. What I do feel a little bit like bad about, but where I feel like it's extra like irksome is I had a client that bought in Delaware County, and it's all the numbers were right and everything. And then not too long after getting into the house is when she got the letter that like, hey, things are going up. That's just like unfortunate timing, like, and it's nothing that, it kind of is what it is, but it would be nice if maybe there was a time frame where like if you just purchased the home or like if it just changed ownership, if there was like a delay for like any changes to go through. But I can only imagine what kind of not chaos that would create, but like the upkeep and the management of trying to like make sure that stayed in place might not be worth doing it.
Well, I guess the problem with that is too, is like, it's not like they're not taking advantage of the county services, right? So it's, I mean, that's just kind of, it's unfortunate timing. I mean, there's two things that are certain, right? Death and taxes. That's it. So, and they had a meeting, and there was, on December the 4th, Fox 29 reported this, that there was many furious Delco residents, and they packed the budget meeting to sound off on the tax increase. Here, like one Delaware County resident said, "You need to get out of here, leave. We're asking you to resign. Please resign." It was the second straight day last week that the heat was turned up on the council. And like, this is not the budget I wanted to present to council, said Barbara O'Malley, the executive director. Another resident said, "How can I expect to start a family, buy a home, or invest in the community if the cost of living continues to spiral out of control?" And I think this is really relevant about how people are feeling right now. And this isn't just Delaware County, but I mean, affordability and inflation has really, it's a problem for a lot of folks. We hear about it all the time when it comes to housing. I mean, how many times do you hear from people that they want to move, but they just can't afford to?
Oh yeah, all the time.
So I mean, and it's a lot of people. So and they also didn't have 12 years. They had 12 years without tax increases, and they had deficits. So I mean, this is. Unfortunately, the county's got to run. Like, and I'm not trying to be lack empathy here for sure. But I mean, you're talking about $185 a year,
right?
Which,
and I mean, if there was, if it was that long between things happening there, like exactly, like particularly like if you're going to be taking advantage of the services that are provided, you have to be able to contribute to keep, or there will be no services.
Yeah, I mean, like, who's going to take out the trash? Like, I mean, this is stuff that happens all the time. So, one of the solutions that that was brought to council was to, again, they want to sell off the wastewater system, and it would avoid the tax increase. But I think that deal is probably a little more. It's not. It can't be as simple as like just sell us the sewer system and we're good to go.
Right. Yeah.
I hope they read through that a little more. I mean, that's like one of those things where it's like they do that deal and it's like a bad deal. There's got to be a lot to work through there. I can't imagine it's that straightforward.
So then the same company is controlling both like the water and the sewer.
So some of the objections about that were that when it came to this selling off of the Delcora sewer system, they said that the asset purchase agreement was signed between Aqua for $276.5 million in 2019, but Delaware County intervened in the matter over the trust hadn't been set up to mitigate the impact to ratepayers, and there's a lawsuit that's temporarily suspended due to Chester's bankruptcy filing. So like this is not like some clean deal to just solve all the problems. And one person actually said, "I know this is one-time money if you think about it that way, but I think we should exhaust all forms of one-time money before implementing a long-term, forever tax increase for all the residents." It's a tough argument here. I mean, it's because it's like you can't just make these deals to like keep floating along, because then you get by the skin of your teeth. And what's going to happen again? Like, there's got to be some sort of long-term.
Right, you're like always on the edge of everything crumbling.
So this is going to be interesting. So I'd love to have Councilwoman Reuter on. That'd be a great get for the show, and also would, I think, shed some light on this because she's actually like dealing with this on a regular basis. Sure. And if you've got questions about this, you're a Delaware County resident, like drop them in the comments on YouTube here. Reach out to us directly, because this is stuff you need to be aware of, because the 185 is the average. There are some places like Radnor Township has much higher taxes than other parts of the county. Drexel Hill, Upper Darby, like they have very high taxes in some of those places. So while the average may be there, your numbers might be affected a lot differently.
Right, for sure.
All right, we'll be back next week. You want to follow Sarah? She's at Ty_Ty Time. You can follow me at TomToole3RD. That's all on Instagram. And we will be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.